Okay, so welcome back. This is video number 2 in my Tera Online series, and as you may notice, I have two characters now. Here we have the level 15 warrior Samio that was introduced in the last video, and we also have the new class Slayer, as I told earlier, level 12. So let us enter the game with the Slayer, since you've seen some of the actions of the warrior. We may explore the classes a little more later in future videos. So first thing, last video I did not exactly know all the things that were happening in the game, so I couldn't really give you all the accurate information. Now I'm a little bit more familiar with what we're doing, and as you can see, here we are finally outside of the starter area. If you take a look at your map using the M key, we are here in Fae Forest, whereas we used to be on Island of Dawn before getting out. Velika was the first great city we went to. It's over here. And so now we are questing in this little zone. And this is the Slayer class, which is a little bit different. And like I said, we may go further detail about the Slayer class later. But for now, let us review some of the settings. First of all, at level 10, as you can see, you get a mount. And it doesn't require you to pay any money. It doesn't require much from you, except to follow a quest. So now that we have this, we can go on and pick up more quests. And one thing you will notice, and I will show you right now, the red question mark instead of the typical yellow question mark or yellow exclamation point. This signifies, from what I've figured out, that it is part of your storyline quests. So if you look at your quest log, you have story quests and you have zone quests, as I've mentioned. I haven't gotten any zone quests yet. And then you have guild quests, which I have not had a chance to experiment with yet. The story quests basically proceed and follow your story in the game and advance the plot for you. And as you can see, I have a mount because of that. So I will talk to the guy here. And the audio in this game is still a little bit glitched because you still cannot fully turn down the voices of the characters, which is weird because you can turn down everything else. So now we are going to, let's see. So one of the things that I've also figured out, which I didn't know before, was this little mini-map here. The way it shows you where your targets are is you actually, when you click and you're looking for the art for Grace Bloom, first of all, it'll mark it on your big map here where it is. So now we can exit here and go towards it. And you'll see just what I mean by it in one moment as we are approaching. So there's another quest to pick up in a little bit, but see, the yellow quests over there are not to further your storyline, they're just to level your typical quests. So as you can see now on my mini-map here, we have a red X that marks the spot. That is where these flowers are going to be, and just from questing earlier I know that they're right here. So we'll pick the flowers. And so let's look at the skills a little bit, what we can chain. So by bringing up these skills, you see these are a couple of skills that I've gotten as a Slayer. If you go into the chain skills section, basically what happens is every time these moves over here cannot be changed, but these over here can. So every time you use Headlong Rush, you can activating Knockdown Strike 2, which you would use the spacebar for. Every time you retaliate happens and you do your move, you can also do an evasive roll right afterwards. And that is something that I set up personally because it wasn't like that before. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to do these moves. It just means that you have the option of having a hotkey that does it, which is right now spacebar. So you can also chain them in a long combination. So for example, Headlong Rush happens to take me into Knockdown Strike. Knockdown Strike doesn't really do anything, but if I were to Triumphant Shout, it takes me into Headlong Rush, which I use, and then it takes me to the Countdown Strike 2, and that is a small chain. Same thing happens here. I have to do Retaliate. Now I have Evasive Roll. I can do the Evasive Roll. Because I've used the Evasive Roll, now I can use Whirlwind 2. I know it's a little bit confusing, but we'll try to show it to you in action in 1 second. And of course you can do some of these moves in combat and out of combat, and that's, you can select whether you want to. So let's see, let's go find a boar here to fight. It's an interesting combat system, I have to say. It's been very, very well done. So there's a boar right there. So we'll dismount. So here we go. I will use my shout, then I will rush, and I don't have enough MP right now. But so evasive roll, and then whirlwind. And the difference between the one thing I forgot to mention actually about these classes is every class has a different way of regenerating MP or using MP. So for example, this class, the Slayer, actually has constantly decaying MP, while other classes may have a full bar of MP, which they just use up and then have to use attacks to replenish. So it's all different. Also, you'll notice something interesting, and it's funny to me because basically the way this game works is when you get equipment, when you get things, you can only use specific things. For example, the Slayer will never use anything but the Great Sword, as you can see in the picture here. The Berserker will never use anything but an axe. I haven't tried the Berserker yet, but that's what it'll be using, a two-handed axe. You know, the Warrior will always have two swords, and you know, and so on and so forth. So every time you get an upgrade, it's always class specific. So when you go to dungeons, unless there's two Slayers, if you're the Slayer, you're getting that item, basically. The other thing is, whenever you get out of an area, it seems like you get a new kind of outfit, and yes, this was quite revealing compared to what I was wearing in the starter zone. And it's kind of the same way for my Warrior, who we may look at a little bit later, but for now let's go turn in a couple of these quests. And basically the game quests are still pretty much the same. They just take you from one quest hub to another, and you know, you continue on that way. Yeah, we got some boots now to use. Let's see, yep. Equip those. You know, the leveling in this game is not too bad. I managed to get the Warrior up to level 15 in not too much time. Although survivability for the Warrior seems to be a little bit difficult.
This isn't my first rodeo.
But yes, I'm not really reading the quest right now because it's a beta, and I'm just kind of trying to get through all of this. See how far I can get, maybe get into a dungeon or something like that. Probably not tonight though, but I have a plan to maybe get into a dungeon in the next beta, which is in 2 weeks. So let's take a look at our quest. So let's see how we mark on our map where the warthog meat, for example, is. And you see the source of it is the long tusk warthogs or the warthog brutes. And again, you click it on your map, and now what you see is the orange dots that appear on my map, and they will stay there until I mark my map for the next quest, basically. But this tells me where these boars will be. Their boars will also have, as you can see, a little yellow exclamation point next to their name, which shows me that they're a quest mob. The red exclamation point will mean they're a quest mob also tied to my story quest. So let us away. And that's the one thing with the Slayer is they start out with absolutely no MP, but they build it up through attacks, just like the Warrior builds up MP. Except the Warrior doesn't lose MP constantly. Yes, so that's the basics of questing again. And yes, as you can see, there's no such thing as Hearthstones in this game. They have things called Safe Haven Teleport Scrolls, and as you can read, it says teleports you to a nearby town or city. So that would probably take me back to that little lodge town that we were in earlier. Oh yes, the one thing that they do mention in this game a lot of the time is when the enemy has a red look in their eye, and you'll see it glint. That means that they're about to do a powerful attack, which means you should stay away, or duck, or dodge, or whatever you have to do. So, I don't know if you noticed it in the last one, but I'm not really giving him that much time to work with here. So, and there we go. And there's that red glint if you happen to notice. And then the one interesting thing about this game is your WASD keys, which in other games may turn you sideways, kind of like what I'm doing with the camera right now. In this game, WASD take you in the specific direction that you want to go. So for example, if I press S, I'm gonna go back, which means it's gonna turn the camera away from me, like this, as you can see. That's me pressing S. If I press A, I'm gonna run to the left, and D runs to the right. So there's no such thing as strafing in this game, so to say, more or less. But I think the way it does help out is for classes like casters, like sorcerers, mystics, or priests. When you need to run and look at your enemy, you can just press S like this, and you're running away, but you're also able to, you know, be ready for attacks. And that's nice. I kind of enjoy that. But this game has some kind of a unique charm to it. And I can't remember exactly who might have said it, but I think it was wise advice, or wise info. No, this pig wants to fight. Basically they said a game has to have one or two things, or both things obviously. An interesting storyline and good combat, and if you only have one or the other, it could be bad. I think this about does it for the basics explanation. If you have any questions, please ask them in the comments section. I will try to answer everything to the best of my ability. This will probably be my last video for this beta. Next time we will try to look at some of the classes, I think.
You need my help?
And that's it.
Another day, another youngster.